There can be no better promotion for Turkey than what Hizmet does by taking people from here, from Jacksonville and from various parts of the world to visit Turkey. My name is Parvez Ahmed. I am a professor of finance at the University of North Florida's Coggin College of Business. I'm also director for the Center for Sustainable Business Practices at UNF. Along with that, I serve on the boards of World Affairs Council of Jacksonville and the Museum of Science and History here in Jacksonville. I'm also one of the commissioners for Jacksonville's Human Rights Commission. I think the most significant contribution that the Hizmet movement has made is in its reviving of a Quranic vision of dialogue. In the Quran, we see this. We read a verse that says, invite all to dialogue, invite all to goodness. And so no matter whatever your differences are, if you cannot sit down and talk to each other, you will never be able to overcome those differences. So this idea of dialogue not only at a faith level, but dialogue also at an individual level or even at a family level. We can work towards perfection, but at no point any human institution can ever be perfect. And every institution goes through growing process. Every movement grows and adapts. Because every movement is a product of the circumstance under which that movement is rooted. So the Hizmet movement is rooted in its own circumstance, in its own historical context. So as the historical context changes, sometimes movements and institutions are slow to adapt to that new changing circumstance. And it takes time. But the movements that succeed are ones that are adaptable, that can adapt to the changing circumstance, and that are open-minded, do not be defensive when criticized, and simply acknowledge that, yes, we are human beings, and we are not above criticism. But the one criticism that I have not found yet a basis on is that Hizmet has some ulterior motive. When somebody serves in such a selfless manner, because such selfless service is so rare, it does provoke suspicion in people that why are they doing it? It may be too good to be true. But instead of having that suspicion, people should engage. And if they engage with the Hizmet people and find out what they are doing and what they're about and what their method of operation is, they will find it that it is like any other social reform movement. At the end of the day, Hizmet is a social reform movement that is faith-based. Dialogue also at an individual level or even at a family level, be able to talk to each other, is a value that needs to be spread more and more. We don't have to always agree with each other, but we can always participate in a dialogue. And I think that's the essence of democracy. Democracy is strengthened when people have the freedom to express their mind. Unfortunately, as I read in the Turkish press today, that value is increasingly suppressed. Turkey, unfortunately, has, the second or the third largest number of journalists in jail. That's not an Islamic value. That's not the value that I gather from the Hizmet movement. And it is, and again, it's a value that needs to be embraced, that we can have differences, and the Hizmet movement has done that. One of the things that impressed me about the Hizmet movement here in Jacksonville as I met with the people is that many of them, in a shorter amount of time, met with more people of other faiths than I have been living in this city for well over 10 years. It was quite impressive that they are not afraid to go to places, go to a church, go to a synagogue, go to a temple, go to an educational institution, go to even a political institution, meet with politicians and government service people, and just have a dialogue with them. And it doesn't have to be sometimes with any defined agenda. Sometimes the simple act of just knowing each other is so profound. And as I often mention, that we need to build relationships with other people not when things are hot and heavy. We need to build relationship when things are calm, so that, God forbid, if things do get hot and heavy, we have somebody to talk to. We need to engage even our enemies in a dialogue. And that would be one of the best ways to achieve peace and justice and stability. So I think that value that Hoja Effendi has taught his students, and the value that his students has embraced throughout the world, is the most enduring value that I can think of. Because so much of the conflict in the Muslim world can be easily solved if people can have dialogue with each other. Because often the roots of these conflicts are quite trivial. And they can easily be solved through more forthright conversation, as conflicts between many Muslim majority countries and countries in the West. They too can be overcome through dialogue. Peace and dialogue is always more desirable than conflict and wars. Charity is a fundamental pillar of Islam. When Prophet Muhammad served people, he never asked what their religion was. And that's the way the service has to be administered. So when Hizmet goes into disaster zone, whether they are in Muslim majority countries or in countries where Muslims are not in the majority, and they serve people the same way, that is a reflection of one of the highest ideals of Islam. That you embrace other human beings simply because they're human beings. Our first and most important identity is that we are Bani Adam. We are the children of Adam and Eve. All of us. Our religious identities are important, our national identities are important, our racial identities are important, but they're all secondary to our human identity. If we are not human beings, then there is nothing, all of those other things don't matter to us. All of those other things only matter because we are human beings first. One of the things that impressed me most about Hizmet was actually when I first visited today's Zaman newspaper, the Zaman newspaper. What surprised me, and when I visited Zaman, I did not know that Zaman was part of the Hizmet movement. Later on, I found out they were part of the Hizmet movement. And I also found out that they were one of the best-selling newspapers in Turkey, the New York Times of Turkey. And in my meeting with the editor of the newspaper, I asked him, what makes your paper, even though you are part of a movement, a religious movement, a religious-based movement, what makes your newspaper so compatible in a country, so widely read in a country that is a secular democracy? And he talked about that we practice our values through our journalism, which means we do not sensationalize news, we do not report news that we know to be false, or that is a propaganda for any one group or the other. And in today's world, even though I live in the United States, one of the more freer and open societies that you can find in the world today, But we know that around the world, journalism is under attack. Free press is under attack. To see Hizmet, a Islam-based institution, practice the craft of journalism, adhering to its highest ethical and moral standards that would be appealing to broad society, is a model that needs to be replicated. And I said, even when I first came back from Turkey and I talked to some of my friends and family, I always cited the Zaman example, that even that small little example, if it can be replicated in Muslim majority societies, where the press is indeed allowed the freedom to operate, and the press operates in a way that is ethical, that little thing itself can change conversation. Because every society needs the freedom, people in every society needs the freedom to express themselves. And media must be kept free so that people can speak out on that. There can be no better promotion for Turkey than what Hizmet does by taking people from here, from Jacksonville and from various parts of the world to visit Turkey. I know several of my friends who are part of government, part of academia, part of the professional community, medical community, lawyers and teachers and policemen who have visited Turkey. And everybody who went to Turkey came back with a different view of the society. I can tell you what my students said when they visited Turkey. I took my MBA students to Turkey twice. And the universal assessment that they gave back was that this was a transformational learning opportunity for us. Because many of my students said that we came back with a completely different view, not only of Turkey, but of Islam and Muslims. So Hizmet has done a great service to the nation of Turkey. And its best service is by taking people from here, from different countries, and giving them the opportunity to experience Turkey without any formal filters. Nobody prevented us from raising any topic or talking to whoever we wanted to talk to. We were given complete freedom, no strings attached, to just know the society. And what touched people most, particularly my students when they visited, is when they met with ordinary Turkish citizens at their homes, when they were served a simple meal. I remember I took my 20 students to visit a Turkish couple. It was just two people, the husband and wife, probably in their mid to late 50s. Two of them cooked a meal for 20 people, did not complain about it, and both of them could not speak proper English. But that did not prevent my 20 students to connect with them at a human level. And when my students came back, they saw grand monuments in Turkey, from Ephesus to the Blue Mosque. But what they remembered most was that small meal that they had with a simple Turkish couple in a very ordinary home in Istanbul. The Hizmet movement is serving humanity without asking for their religions or their racial identity or whatever else. They are serving people because service to God's creation is a path to serving God.
I believe the Hizmet movement stands for commitment. I mean, to me, that's the key word there. It's a commitment to God. It's a commitment to the individual, a commitment to peace,